Expansions of Advaita Acharya is this chapter's title, and it includes other expansions as well, like Gadadhar Pandit. And we're going to read a few verses this morning, everyone, starting at, which one is up on the board to start, 85 to 87, is that correct?
Yes.
Fantastic. So please repeat, everyone. We'll do all these verses because they're all up on the board. Starting 85. Sri Hari Acharya Sadi Puriya Gopala. Krishna Dasa Brahmachari Pushpa Gopala. Sri Harsha Raghu Mishra Pandita Lakshminatha. Bhagavati Caitanya Dasa Sri Raghunatha. Amoga Pandit Hashti Gopal Caitanya Vallabha. Yadu Ganguli Ara Mangala Vaishnava. Translations and purports by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The 19th branch was Sri Hari Acharya, the 20th Sadapuriya Gopal, the 21st Krishnadas Brahmachari, and the 22nd Pushpa Gopal. Purport. The Guru Ganadeshtipika, verses 196 and 207, mention that Sri Hari Acharya was formerly the gopi named Kalakshi. Sadi Puriya Gopal is celebrated as a preacher of the Hare Krishna movement in Vikramapur in East Bengal. Krishnadas Brahmachari was formerly among the group of Sakis known as the Astasakis. His name was Induleka. Krishnadas Brahmachari lived in Vrindavan. There is a tomb in the Radha Damodar Temple known as Krishnadas's tomb. Some say that this is the tomb of Krishnadas Brahmachari, and others Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. In either case, we offer our respects because both of them were expert in distributing love of Godhead to the fallen souls of this age. The Sakha Nirnaya mentions that Pushpa Gopal was formerly known as Swanagra Maka. Translation text 86. The 23rd branch was Sri Harsha, the 24th Raghu Mishra, the 25th Lakshmi Nath Pandit, the 26th Chaitanya Das, and the 27th Raghunath. Purport. Raghu Mishra is described in the Gaura Ganadeshtipika verses 195 and 201 as Kapura Manjari. Similarly, Lakshmi Nath Pandit is mentioned as Rason Mada, and Bhagavati Caitanya Das is mentioned as Kali. The Sakha Nirnaya states that Bhagavati Caitanya Das was always seen with eyes full of tears. He also had a branch of descendants. Their names were Mathura Prasad, Rukmini Kanta, Jivana Krishna, Yugala Kishore, Ratana Krishna, Radha Madhava, Usha Mani, Vaikuntanath, and Lal Mohan, or Lala Mohan Saha Sankanidhi. Lala Mohan was a great merchant in Dhaka city. The Guru Ganadeshtipika verses 194 and 200 mentions that Raghunath was formerly Varangada. Text 87, translation. The 28th branch was Amogal Pandit, the 29th Hashti Gopal, the 30th Chaitanya Vallabha, the 31st Yadu Ganguli, and the 32nd Mangala Vaishnav. Purport. Sri Mangala Vaishnav was a resident of the village Titakana in the district of Murishabad. His forefathers were Shaktas who worshipped the goddess Kiriteshvari. It is said that Mangal Vaishnav, formerly a staunch brahmachari, left home and later married the daughter of his disciple Prananath Adhikari in the village of Adi-lila. The descendants of this family are known as the Thakurs of Khandada, which is a village in the district of Burdwan near Katwa. Scattered descendants of Mangal Vaishnav, 36 families altogether, still live there. Among the celebrated disciples of Mangal Thakur are Prananath Adhikari, Purushottam Chakravarti of the village of Kankada, and Nrsinga Prasad Mitra, whose family members are well-known mridanga players. Shuddha Krishna Mitra and Nikunja Bihari Mitra are both especially famous mridanga players. In the family of Purushottam Chakravarti, there are famous persons like Kunja Bihari Chakravarti and Radha Ballabha Chakravarti, who now live in the district of Birdhum. They professionally recite songs from Caitanya Mangala. It is said that when Mangal Thakur was constructing a road from Bengal to Jagannath Puri, he found a deity of Radha Ballabha while digging a lake. At that time, he was living in the locality of Khandada in the village named Ranipura. The Shalagram Shila, personally worshipped by Mangal Thakur, still exists in the village of Khandada. A temple has been constructed there for the worship of Vrindavan Chandra. Mangal Thakur had 3 sons, Radhika Prasad, Gopi Ramana, and Sham Kishora. The descendants of these 3 sons are still living. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhate Gurim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Sri Gurum Dinatarana. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual masters very kindly come, forced open my eyes with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. I offer my most respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet. By the kindness of spiritual master, even a blind man can see stars in the sky, a lame man can cross over mountains, and a dumb man can recite eloquent Vedic poetry. So, as we close on this year, we also close on this chapter in a few more verses of Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. And I've already checked in with tomorrow. Dandakaranya Prabhu is giving class, and he's given me his blessings to jump ahead just a little bit, briefly, ever so briefly, because we generally try to avoid doing that. But you may be wondering why Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has gone to so much trouble to mention so many different personalities, descendants, followers of different members of the Panchatattva. So he gives a hint to that right at the end of this chapter, and I'll just repeat very briefly. Simply by remembering the names of all these branches and sub-branches of the 3 trunks I have described, Nityananda, Advaita and Gadadhar, one attains freedom from the entanglement of material existence. Anybody here not want freedom from the entanglement of material existence? Oh, very good. So just by hearing the names of these branches and sub-branches, we achieve that. And similarly, simply by remembering the names of all these Vaishnavas, one can attain the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Indeed, simply by remembering their holy names, one achieves the fulfillment of all desires. So we all want that, right? Fulfillment of all desires, yeah? Sound good? So we just have to hear these wonderful names and fulfillment of all desires. Hari Bol. So Happy New Year, 2023, tomorrow. So these personalities are being described here. So we thought, taking a leaf out of the book of Sri Caitanya, Charan Prabhu, Hare Krishna, who visited us very kindly for the first time a few weeks back after 3 years' absence. And we always relish Caitanya Charan Prabhu's wonderful, well-researched classes. In my humble opinion, he is a spiritual genius, as there are many other spiritual geniuses, followers of Srila Prabhupada, spreading Sankirtan movement all over the world. But I always like the way Caitanya Charan Prabhu summarizes his classes at the end. He always says, now to summarize, we mentioned this, we mentioned that, and we mentioned the other things. And it's really wonderful. So, yes, we're coming to the end of this chapter. And again, not to jump ahead, don't look around you too much, but chapter 13 is the advent of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we'll start that in the new year. I think Prabhu is going to finish this chapter tomorrow. So, but to just summarize a little bit some of the glories of Gadadhar Pandit, who has, of course, been identified by Kavi Kanapur, Gauragana Deshti Peak, as non-different to the daughter of King Vrishabhanu. He is identical with Vrindavaneshwari Srimati Radharani herself in Adi-lila. And it's said that Gadadhar Pandit was a year or three younger than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but they grew up together, very close by, living in the same part of Nadia, Mayapur. And so they were lifelong companions. And it's said that no one had more love for Lord Chaitanya than Gadadhar Pandit. And his mother, Ratnavati Devi, considered Sachi Devi, Lord Chaitanya's mother, as her own sister. And the two ladies were constantly going to one another's homes with their boys. Constantly visiting one another. And of course, Lord Chaitanya and Gadadhar Pandit went to the same school. And they were inseparable. And when Ishwara, a little bit later on in life, though earlier on, before Mahaprabhu had manifested his divine pastimes as an exalted devotee, Gadadhar did perceive that some of the older members of the Vaishnava community, like Advaita Acharya and Srivas Thakur in particular, seemed to know something about Vishvambar Mishra, Lord Gaura Hari, that Gadadhar, they seemed to know something. They could see something in this Vishvambar Mishra that was extraordinary, exceptional. They had identified him as a very exalted personality. But in his childhood and youth, Mahaprabhu was enjoying his pastime as a proud scholar. But this was noted by Gadadhar. And Gadadhar also had wonderful qualities. He was very serene, patient, calm, quiet, very fond of solitude, and very renounced and very attached to Krishna. And sometimes in their boyhood and teenage years, Mahaprabhu would try to draw Gadadhar into frivolous debates. But Gadadhar wasn't at all interested. He wouldn't be drawn. And at one point, Mahaprabhu said to Gadadhar, "You wait, Gadadhar. Soon I will become such a Vaishnav that even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva will stand at my door with folded palms. You just wait." So, of course, that did manifest shortly thereafter. Ishwara Puri, the great disciple of Madhavendra Puri, was travelling around and regularly coming to Navadvip and spending some time there. And he would sometimes stay with Gadadhar Pandit and his family and stay with other devotees in Navadvip. And whilst with Gadadhar's family, he would read to Gadadhar from a book of his own composition known as Sri Krishna Caitanya. He did that for several months. And sometimes Mahaprabhu would invite Ishwarapuri to his own home and even cook for him. So in this way, relationship was developing between the Lord and the fortunate person who would, a short time later, initiate Mahaprabhu at Gaya, and then the Lord returned to Navadvip completely transformed and very humble and just swooning at the name of Krishna. And this, of course, caused great ecstasy to Advaita Acharya, Srivas Thakur, Gadadhar, and so many of the other Vaishnavas in the Holy Dham. So, and of course, there are many wonderful pastimes, very famous. Actually, at this time also, when Mahaprabhu returned, he was feeling so much separation from Krishna. On one occasion, Gadadhar tried to calm the Lord down by saying, we have a fortunate creature here crawling his way along the Caitanya Caritamrita. Very fortunate. So we won't disturb. He's okay there. On one occasion, Gadadhar tried to calm the Lord down and reassuring him, because Mahaprabhu was saying, where is Krishna, where is Krishna? And Gadadhar said, Krishna's in your heart, my dear Gaurasundar. And at that point, Mahaprabhu started scratching his chest with his fingernails. If he's in my heart, then I'm going to open my chest to reveal him. So Gadadhar then had to put more, had to calm the Lord down even more. And when Sachi Devi, the Lord's mother, heard this, she asked Gadadhar, please stay with him all the time and protect him. Which Gadadhar took very seriously and did to the best of his ability throughout the Lord's life. Another famous pastime is when Gadadhar had a good friend, and is very famous in Mahaprabhu's pastimes, Mukunda Datta. And Mukunda Datta and Gadadhar would regularly go, whenever a great Vaishnav would come to Navadvip, they would go to hear from that Vaishnav. They were very fond of doing that. So on one occasion, Mukunda Dutt told Gadadhar that the great Pundarik Vijayanidhi is coming. We have to go and hear from him. He is the most exalted of Vaishnavas. So, and of course, Vrishabhanu Maharaj, Srimati Radharani's father, is Pundarik Vijayanidhi. So we can see how thick the relationship is developing here between all the Lord's eternal associates who descended with him from Goloka and other Vaikuntha planets and heavenly planets to assist Mahaprabhu in his pastimes. So Pundarik Vijayanidhi was a Brahmana, a great scholar, and a guru. He already had many disciples. And did we mention he was also a very wealthy man? And he came, as did Mukunda Dutt, from the same part of Bengal, Chattogram, where there are many villages, and they didn't exactly live in the same village, but they knew one another. So Mukunda Dutt had a great deal of regard for Pundarik Vijayanidhi. But Gadadhar had never seen him before, never met him before. So they went. And initially, Gadadhar, who was very renounced brahmachari, very austere person, Brahmin, was a little put off because Pundarik Vijayanidhi didn't appear like a very renounced person. He was dressed, he had a magnificent home in Navadvip where he would come and stay some time. He also had another house in Chattogram. So he had so many palatial furnishings in his home. He was sitting on a beautifully decorated and covered asana with bolsters. He was dressed very opulently in silks, had long, beautiful black hair, oiled with costly perfumes. He was chewing betel nut, so his lips and teeth were red. And he was being fanned by some of his servants. So he was wearing very costly jewelry, gold, So at first Gadadhar Pandit's mind was a little disturbed. And Mukunda Dutt, being very perceptive, understood this. So he immediately quoted some beautiful verses from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, especially explaining how merciful Krishna is, that he delivered even the witch Putana who came to kill him. That's how merciful our Lord is. And at that point, Pundarik Vijayanidhi completely lost external consciousness, came down off his opulent asana and was literally thrashing around on the ground and manifesting all of the 8 symptoms of ecstatic love for Krishna. So Gadadhar realized he'd committed a great offense they say you can't judge a book by the cover. So he thought how to rectify this offense of taking a great personality for granted. So he thought the only way he could do that was by actually, and at that point he was not initiated. So he thought the only way I can rectify this offense is by begging Pundarik Vijayanidhi for initiation. And Pundarik Vijayanidhi very mercifully acquiesced to that request, and he said, yes, the next auspicious day I will certainly initiate you. And Pundarik Vijayanidhi said, it is rare in this world to get a disciple like Gadadhar Pandit. So he considered himself extremely fortunate. So that is a wonderful, wonderful pastime, very famous in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And of course, we might come back, but we'll proceed on. Of course, when the Lord took sannyas, many of the Lord's associates, former residents of Navadvip, also wanted and did eventually go and live with Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. And Gadadhar Pandit was one of those personalities. And it's said that Mahaprabhu actually discovered the deity of Tota Gopinath in the sand in Puri, and he gave that deity of Tota Gopinath to Gadadhar Pandit to worship for the rest of his life. And that place is there, and many of us, I'm sure, have been there to visit. It's very wonderful, the temple of Tota Gopinath. It's considered non-different. That area where the deity was found by Mahaprabhu is considered non-different to Govardhan. So, and of course, at one point Mahaprabhu went off, actually quite soon after arriving in Puri. He went off on his tour to South India, and then eventually he very much wanted to go to Vrindavan, which he did. And on that occasion, whilst he was leaving Jagannath Puri for the journey to Vrindavan, Gadadhar went with him and was fully anticipating going all the way to Vrindavan with Lord Caitanya, but Lord Caitanya forbade him. They got to the shore of one river, a little north of Jagannath Puri, and there's a beautiful description. In one of these volumes of Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Mahaprabhu is getting in a boat and Gadadhar Pandit is fainting in separation on the shore of the river because Mahaprabhu says you can't come. You've taken a vow of Chetra Sannyas, which is a vow that saintly persons take to reside the rest of their life in one particular holy place, either Sri Vrindavan, Sri Jagannath Puri, or Mayapur, Navadvip, like that. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was also a Chetra sannyasi, even though he was a householder. He had vowed never to leave Purushottam Kshetra, Jagannath Puri. So Mahaprabhu forbade him and said he would be breaking one of the orders that he'd taken, or one of the vows he had taken, and that was not very good. So Lord Caitanya went off on his tour, and of course eventually returned. And for the rest of his life, after that 6 years of combined travelling, Mahaprabhu remained 18 years in Puri. And very famously, he would go most days in the afternoons and hear Srimad Bhagavatam being recited by Gadadhar at the Tota Gopinath Temple. And Mahaprabhu would just listen, and Gadadhar would recite. And hundreds and hundreds of times he would recite the pastimes of Dhruva Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj. He wasn't just speaking on Krishna's 10th canto pastimes. So that's very, very famous. And all right, we'll just at this point, Mahaprabhu did give Gadadhar 3 personal instructions. The first, be the authoritative teacher of Srimad Bhagavatam. The second, give formal initiation on behalf of Lord Caitanya to true seekers on the path of Braja Bhakti. And 3, worship the deities of Radha Gopinath. So they were the personal instructions that he received during that time. And it's said that love for Krishna personified is Gadadhar Pandit. And as we know, very important in Bhakti, the book Bhagavatam and the devotee Bhagavatam. So we have to serve the personification of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the form of our spiritual masters, and also regularly study the Bhagavatam. And just a little deeper than that, of course, Gadadhar Pandit is the incarnation of devotional energy and of the internal potency, Shakti Tattva. And he's most confidential worshipper of the Vishnu Tattva members of the Pancha Tattva, Lord Caitanya, who's known as Gaura Narayan, Gaura Krishna, and of course Lord Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Acharya. So, and it's wonderful because in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, we see many of our predecessor acharyas personally worship deities of Gadadhar and Lord Caitanya, Gaur Gadadhar, such as the personal deities of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gaur Gadadhar. And also at Champahati, there are old deities of Gaur Gadadhar, which are still being worshipped very nicely, but were originally worshipped by Dvija Vaninath, who was the brother of Gadadhar Pandit. And they're also installed and worshipped deities of Gaur Gadadhar at the Yoga Pit in Mayapur, the birth site of Mahaprabhu, established by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And it was, it's Chatak Parvat Govardhan in Jagannath Puri. That's where the deity of Gopinath was discovered by Mahaprabhu. And it's said that Mahaprabhu once asked Gadadhar Pandit, I want to give you my most valuable property. Will you accept it? And Gadadhar Pandit said, yes. So that's ecstatic love of Krishna in separation. And when Mahaprabhu left this world at age just 48, Gadadhar Pandit became very old very quickly. And he passed away just a few years after. But instead of looking like a man perhaps around the age of 50 or early 50s, he looked like a very, very old man. And he couldn't bear, due to separation. They do say there's such a thing as one dying from a broken heart. So that was he couldn't bear separation. And also back in the early life of Mahaprabhu, before and during and after, residents of Navadvip who were being told that we think this Vishvambara Misra, Gaur Sundar, Gaura Hari, Nimai Pandit, may just be the Supreme Lord. So others would question, well, if he is the Supreme Lord, where are all his associates? So they are all these associates that we read about. And it's interesting because those associates of the Lord, they pretended to be sadhakas or practitioners on the path towards perfection in bhakti, but they were in fact already perfect. But they were pretending or acting as sadhakas for our benefit, that this is what you have to do if you want to develop love for Krishna and go back to the Lord's abode. You have to live an austere life, relatively speaking, and chant Krishna's names as much as possible and worship Krishna. So they were doing all that for our benefit. So, and of course, just by hearing some of their names, like Mangal Vaishnav, just hearing that, or Chaitanya Vallabha, and what to speak of Yadu Ganguly. These are beautiful names. And just by reciting them, as we've heard, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami said we can achieve all perfection in life. So, but of course, I might just, don't want to miss any points here. And of course our wonderful Vaishnava authors like Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and Vrindavan Das Thakur sometimes use very strong language to encourage us. In the Mangala Charanam, or in auspicious invocation at the very beginning of Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur says to his readers, my dear fools, just worship Chaitanya Mangala, or Chaitanya Bhagavat as it became known. So one might question, this is not very polite language. You're about to read somebody's book and the author of the book is calling you a fool, but a dear fool. So, but our acharyas are coming from a different place. They're coming from a very, very high standpoint of spiritual realization. And they're challenging us to take full advantage, because foolish persons, sadly, something so nice, something so beneficial, and you're not taking advantage. So in that way, they challenge us. And of course, another famous author of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, one of the brothers of Venkata Bhatta, and there were three brothers, Venkata Bhatta, and he served as the spiritual master of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Prabodhananda Saraswati. In one of his wonderful writings, which Prabhupada quotes often, he takes a slightly different tack. He encourages his readers. He says, I'm taking a piece of straw between my teeth and I'm offering you my prostrated Dandavata obeisances spread out at your feet and begging you, just forget everything you ever thought you knew and inquire seriously about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy, and you'll find it to be strikingly wonderful. So he takes that tack. And we see in the pastimes the original Sankirtan team, Haridas Thakur and Lord Nityananda Prabhu, they would go on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's order door to door in Navadvip, and they would bang on the doors, and when the householders would open the doors, they would just fall inside, offering obeisances to the householders. and beg them, please chant the name of Krishna and Gauranga. And some of the householders would offer to them something to eat or some monetary remuneration, and they would say, no, we don't want either of those. We would just beg. The only alms we beg are that you chant Krishna's name and Mahaprabhu's name. That's all the alms we beg. So Nityananda Prabhu, original spiritual master, because we are so fallen and disinterested in spiritual life in this age, the Guru is coming to our door and begging us. That's very unconventional. We see in ISKCON law, gurus can't canvass for disciples. Hari sorry, it's not allowed. So, but yet the Guru is coming to our door, banging on our door and begging us, please do this for your own benefit. So this is wonderful opportunity we all have. And let's just see. And this Caitanya Caritamrita is quite an extensive Shastra, 11,519 verses. I think Srimad Bhagavatam is approximately 18,000 verses. And within these 11,519 verses, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has drawn 851 verses from other Shastras, and he's impregnated them into his wonderful work. And a wonderful verse from Srimad Bhagavatam which comes to mind. The Srimad Bhagavatam is as brilliant as the sun. It has appeared just after the departure of Lord Sri Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense, dark ignorance at the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. So these literatures are very wonderful. We hope next year will be a wonderful year on all levels for everyone in the world. But we know, sadly, that this age of Kali has many faults. Famous Kali dosa nide rajam asti eka mahaduran Caitanya eva krishnasya mukta sangha param brajet. That this age of Kali is an ocean of faults. But there's one great redeeming quality about the age of Kali, is that one can achieve all success in life simply by Harinam Sankirtan, chanting Krishna's names, especially congregationally, very powerful, and one can go back home, back to Godhead, back to the spiritual world. So I might just finish, just to further reinforce. We've been doing a little reading lately of Nectar of Devotion, wonderful early book that Srila Prabhupada took the trouble to translate, summary study of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And in chapter 1 of the Nectar of Devotion, the chapter is entitled The Different Qualities of Devotional Service. It's like a handbook on bhakti. And Rupa Goswami there gives very nice encouragement. He says that the two first items in devotional service, which a sadhaka can tangibly experience, is that pure devotional service brings immediate relief from all kinds of material distress. Isn't that wonderful? And the second is pure devotional service is the beginning of all auspiciousness. And Prabhupada famously said, without a hint of pride, that I have created your good fortune. Had he not come, none of us would have had this auspiciousness. But of course, Prabhupada, Rupa Goswami and Srila Prabhupada do stress pure devotional service, unmotivated, uninterrupted. And in Rupa's famous verse, Anya bilasita sunyam jnana kama janabritam anukulyana krishnanu shilanam bhakti uttamam. That pure devotional service is characterized by rendering service to Krishna without any desire for fruitive activity or mental speculation. Uttama bhakti, topmost bhakti. And there's a delightful story of Srila Prabhupada visiting Boston. It was very early in the movement, possibly 1968, but there was a centre in Boston, and Prabhupada went there. And for some time before, the early devotees had been hearing Prabhupada saying he very much wanted to have a world Sankirtan party, just travelling to every town and village, doing Harinam Sankirtan, and Prabhupada would speak, or the devotees could speak. So Prabhupada kept mentioning this. So Gargamuni and Brahmananda Prabhus, they thought we have to try and assist Prabhupada in fulfilling his desire. They bought the first bus in the Hare Krishna movement. And Prabhupada came to Boston, but the bus was undergoing extensive renovations. All the seats in the bus had been taken out, and they'd laid a nice cork floor, and they were trying to build some simple altar and a kitchen at the back of the bus, but it was very much a work in progress. Nonetheless, Prabhupada was really excited. He said, I want to go for a ride on the bus. So they brought the bus around. The problem was there was only one seat on the bus, and that was the driver's seat. So Brahmananda and Gargamuni went and got a chair from the temple, put the chair at the front of the bus, and Brahmananda sat behind the chair and held it secure on the floor, and Prabhupada sat on the chair. And Prabhupada told them where to go. He said, I'll take you somewhere. We'll go for a ride on the bus. So they went, and Prabhupada was saying, turn right here, turn left there. And eventually they came to the dock in Boston Pier. Prabhupada said, let's get off the bus, let's go for a walk. He took them for a walk down along the pier, and he stopped, and he pointed with his cane up, and there was a big sign on top of a warehouse, and it said, Boston Unalloyed Steel. And Prabhupada said, this is what we want, unalloyed bhakti. And they went back. So that is and of course, this is another old English word which Prabhupada used and our predecessor acharyas like to use. We may hear occasionally, it's an alloy. It means a combination of metals. Yeah. But unalloyed, we don't hear that so much. But there's another delightful old English word Prabhupada was very fond of quoting. Unalloyed bhakti, no desire for karma or jnana. And again, we've just reread Nectar of Devotion, where in the 64 items of bhakti, there's no mention of karma yoga or jnana yoga. Not a peep from Rupa Goswami. These are big systems of yoga. Even Krishna outlines them to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. Not a mention of karma yoga, jnana yoga. They have billions of followers all over the universes. Not a peep. So, unalloyed bhakti. So I think we better stop here and leave a little time for questions or comments. Sorry, Prabhu, if you'd like to add anything. Do we have a microphone? We have a microphone already fired up, and if anyone would like to add anything or ask a question or make a correction, Mataji's poised here to leap into action. I think Krishna Kirtan has a finger out, pointing. It's just okay.
It's just a little addition to that transcendental pastime of Sri Gadara Pandit being ordered by Mother Sachi to always stay with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That sometimes when that pastime is recalled, it's commented that in Krishna Lila, the elders would always keep Radha and Krishna separated. It's very difficult for them to unite. But in Chaitanya Lila, Mother Sachi ordered Gadara Pandit to remain with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is on the basis of Gadara Radharani and Chaitanya Krishna.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Krishna Kirtan. Anyone else? Yes, Dasi has a comment here or a question.
So at the Gopinath temple you mentioned about Gadadhar staying there. So I know there's a katha where the Gopinath is sitting in a sitting position. So is that because of Gadadhar service?
The reason is that as Gadadhar Pandit aged so quickly after Mahaprabhu's disappearance, and as we all know, those of us who are a little older now. Mobility becomes a big problem when you get older. You can't. So Gadadhar couldn't actually reach up to put the garland on Lord Gopinath because he became invalid, very old. So Lord Gopinath sat down to make it easier for his devotee to serve him. Yeah, that's the reason. Okay. I think Vaishnavi might have a comment also.
I have a question. You were mentioning about Pundarik Rajaniti and that he was a Grahastha Guru because he initiated Gadadhar Pandit and he was living in an opulent household. And then we also hear about sannyasi gurus, but it was interesting, it said that Mangal Vaishnava, he was a staunch brahmachari and he had disciples. And then he went and married his disciple's daughter, so that's not very commonly heard of.
Sure. Maybe not so common, but these are uncommon personalities. And yes. So it happened like that. Yeah. I can't add I don't know too much more of the backstory on that, but yeah, sometimes it happens with the blessings of the father, no doubt. To have his daughter marry such an exalted Vaishnava. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to mention also, Krishna Kirtan's doing wonderful service to all the Vaishnavas here by compiling the class roster, which has just gone up this morning. So please everyone take a photo of the class roster with your phone, because I think this month, or as many of you know, and there are also posters on the notice board there, we have many wonderful Vaishnavas coming: Devamrita Maharaj, Janananda Maharaj, Narayani Devi Dasi, and Dina Bandhu. Yeah, I did pretty good, 3 out of 4. To just name, and I think someone else. And Hari Sori Prabhu is of course here, staying with us for some time. So all these senior disciples of Srila Prabhupada, and many we haven't seen for a few years because of pandemic. So please, don't miss any of their classes. And in between, of course, there are also wonderful classes from our resident devotees here at New Govardhana. So with that, everyone, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Sri Caitanya Charitamrita ki, Gaura Premanandi.